Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Actually, hang on a second. Sorry, actually. So, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatin Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And unto Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement. Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Very good. Does anybody recall what happened? What was the last thing that was mentioned in the third chapter of the Bhagavatam, first canto? Where did we leave it? Where was it left at? Does anybody remember that? This is a test of memory. Okay, let's remind ourselves. Basically, it was the answer to the last question, the sixth question by Sutta Goswami. He answered it by saying, okay, Krishna has left, but now the Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the disappearance of Krishna to his own abode. And people who have lost their vision due to darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali can get light from this Purana. So we won't go through the previous three chapters, otherwise it'll just take a little bit too long. But effectively, these three chapters, the sages at Naimisharanya have asked 6 questions, and Sutta Goswami is answering them slowly. But although the Bhagavatam contains the answers to these questions throughout the Bhagavatam. So let's go to chapter 4. And one of the key verses, they're all good verses, key verses, but this is one I picked out, which is Vyasadeva contemplation. Bodhikanam cha pavanam shaktir sham sajat kritam ashadhadanam nihishatvandu medam nihishataya yusho durbhagadam shajanam Vikshamune divyena chakshusha sarvavanashramanam yayadyohitam amoghadrik. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through this transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. So we'll see this verse come up again. The 4th chapter is entitled The Appearance of Sri Narad. Shonak's questions is the mini theme within this chapter. Shonak glorifies Sutta and he asks about the history of the Bhagavatam. So the questions are continuing. How did Vyas get inspiration to compile this literature? How did Parikshit meet the great Sukha, who hardly stays long in one place, so that he could recite the Bhagavatam? Why did Parikshit give up everything to sit on the bank of the Ganga, banks of the and fast until death? And why would he give up his body? So the next theme from verses 14 to 25 is the explanation by Sutta Goswami. Sutta begins by explaining how Vyasadeva was sitting on the banks of the Saraswati river
when he foresaw the deterioration in this age of Kali. So that's the verse that we just read. How, let's just go to it. He saw through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could see that faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would become impatient due to lack of mode of goodness. So he was contemplating the welfare of everyone. Thus, he divided the Vedas into 4, and he also wrote the 5th Ved, which is the Mahabharata and the Puranas. And then he taught these books to his disciples. From verses 26 to 33, we will read that even after writing these amazing literatures, Vyasadeva still felt unsatisfied. He became dejected. He became introspective. He considered that he had worshipped the Vedas, he had worshipped the spiritual master, he had followed all the rules of spiritual life. He'd even written the Mahabharata, making it accessible to everyone. So he was thinking in himself, what had he done wrong? And he was thinking, was it that I had forgotten to describe bhakti, devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So just as Vyas is contemplating like this, Narad Muni reaches his ashram. So that's the end of chapter 4. It's quite a small chapter, 33 verses. Chapter 5, and this is a verse that I thought was very, very nice to read. Nayad vachas chitra padam hare yasho jagat pavitram pragnita karhichit tadvayasham tirtham ushanti manasha nayatra hamsa nirmanti ushikshaya.
Those words which did not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
So again, we'll come onto this verse in a little while. So the 5th chapter is entitled Narad's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. And the first mini theme is Vyasadev's interaction with Narad. Narad asks Vyas. So Vyasadeva is sitting there, Narad Muni comes, Vyas rises, and actually this is his spiritual master. Narad Muni is the son of Brahma, and Vyasadeva has accepted him as his spiritual master. So he pays his obeisances, and then Narad Muni asks, are you satisfied? Are you happy in yourself? And Vyas replies that he's feeling something's missing. He's feeling despondent. And he requests help from Narad Muni to understand this position. He could understand that he neglected bhakti, but he had written the Vedas. He followed all the rules and regulations. He'd written the Mahabharata. He'd written the Puranas. He was still unhappy. So Narad Muni, then from verses 8 until 16, he indicates to Vyas that because you have not described the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, you are feeling dissatisfied. Those words that do not describe the glories of the Lord are like a place of pilgrimage for crows. So there you go, that verse again. So this is quite life-changing, I would say, because we all used to reading literature which does not glorify Supreme Lord. Newspapers, ordinary novels, magazines, many things we read. But actually, Narad Muni is saying that well, if it's not glorifying the Lord, then simply those literatures are like a place of pilgrimage for crows. Not a good place. Not a good place at all. So we try to reduce reading I know in this world, of course, due to our occupation, we may have to read. That's a different matter. If we're reading for leisure, if we're reading for pleasure, we should think what we're reading. Is it going to help me? If it's not going to help me, then why am I reading this? People in general will be guided by Vyas and accept his writings in the name of religion. Therefore, he advised Vyas that he should describe the transcendental activities of the Lord, because that will bring about a revolution in the lives of the impious. This is the point. It'll bring about a change in the hearts. That's the point. If we let Krishna, let him into our hearts, then we give him an opportunity to clean all the dirt that's in the heart. And one way we can give him that opportunity is by reading transcendental literature. Literature which does not describe bhakti will only agitate the mind, whereas transcendental literature will bring about a change of heart for the materialist. Very powerful, powerful messages here. Krishna uplifts fallen souls, 17 to 19. One who forsakes his material occupations to engage in bhakti of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. That can happen. We've seen that happen many a time. Yet, there is no danger of him being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So this is the point which Arjuna also asked. He challenged Krishna in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, after Krishna explained the Astanga Yoga system. And Arjuna said, this is not practical, can't do it. And then Krishna answers that, well, you need to practice and you need detachment, but it's possible. And then Arjuna asks the question, what happens to that person who's not successful in this path? He's left the material path and he's not successful in the spiritual path. So is he in neither world? Is he lost completely? And Krishna very kindly answers, no. That person who makes an attempt is never lost. He'll take birth in an opulent family, in a family of devotees. He will continue his bhakti in his next life. So this is the point. Even if somebody takes to this process of bhakti and cannot complete it because of immaturity, because the temptations of this world are just too much, at least that person has made an attempt and the Lord will recognize that. He will not be unsuccessful in the next opportunity he gets. He will continue with this in this process. One should not waste time in pursuit of material happiness, but should perform bhakti because it is never lost. And the Lord always protects him. And that's where Krishna says to Arjuna, declare it boldly, my devotee never perishes. That's quite a statement. And he asks Arjuna to declare it, because we all know Krishna doesn't always keep his word, but he always keeps the word of his devotee. So he said to Arjuna, you tell everybody that my devotee never perishes. Next subsection is everything for Krishna, verses 20 to 22. The Supreme Lord is himself this cosmos, yet he is aloof from it. From him, the manifestations emanate, in him they rest, and unto him they enter after annihilation. Thus, all advancement of knowledge, austerities, studying the Vedas, chanting the hymns, doing the charity, it all culminates in the transcendental descriptions of Krishna. So that is the Samanbonam. That's the end goal, to always get to the transcendental descriptions of Krishna. So Narad then describes his previous life. He was requested to do so by Vyas. In his previous life, Narad was the son of a maidservant, engaged in the service of learned Vedantist Brahmanas. By their association, he gained a taste for hearing about Krishna. He gained strong faith in them and strictly followed them. When the sages left, they instructed him in the confidential knowledge of Krishna. So he was a young boy, probably about 5 or so. And he says, if we read the verses, in one of the verses, he says, I honored their Mahaprasad once with their permission. And that completely cleansed my heart. So Narad Muni is, in his previous birth, became pure devotee. Attraction for Krishna by hearing, 32 to 36. Narad then explains that anyone can become attracted to Krishna. When all of one's activities are dedicated to serving Krishna, then the very acts which cause bondage become liberating. So we don't stop acting. We don't stop doing things. That's just called laziness. We continue to do our activities. But if we dovetail those activities into Krishna's service, then those very activities which normally would be causing our bondage, making us do more and more karma, good or bad, that very karma, that very act becomes our liberating act, becomes our karma. By performing duties for the Lord, one constantly remembers him. Just glorify Krishna. That's the last part of chapter 5. Narad recalls how he made progress, spiritual progress. Firstly, he was endowed with confidential knowledge of the Lord. So like it says here, the second subsection, he was instructed about confidential knowledge of Krishna by the sages. So first, he got this knowledge. Then with spiritual opulences, and then with intimate loving service, he finally instructs Vyas to glorify Krishna for the benefit of great learned men and for us to alleviate miseries of the masses of common people. So this is the nature of sadhus. They are very kind-hearted. They're always looking for ways to help us. That's their purpose in life. Because, why do they do that? Because they know we are dear to Krishna. And for whatever reason, we've forsaken Krishna. So the sadhu is always trying to re-engage us with Krishna again. So moving on to chapter 6.
Etatyatra chetanam matraspasya moho bhavasindhu bhavo drishto haricharyanu. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nescience on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead.
So this is a really interesting verse. They're full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects. So this is pretty much describing everybody in this world. We're all trying to satisfy our senses. So we end up with cares. We care for our family members, our pets, whatever. And that also brings its own anxieties. So how do we cross over this ocean of nescience? On this suitable boat, which is chanting of the transcendental activities of the Lord. So the chapter's name is Conversation between Narad and Vyas. Vyasadeva asked Narad what he did after the departure of the great sages and how he passed his life after initiation, and also how he attained his current body, having quit his old one. Narad replies, he explains, oh yeah, good point, yeah, I need to check that. Narad explained that his mother was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Once upon a time, when going out at one night to milk a cow, She was bitten on the leg by a serpent and she died. Narad took this. He was a young boy. He was a young boy at that time. He took this as special mercy of the Lord.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Prabhuji, the child Narad traversed, it just says verse 1 to 4 again. So
Yeah, Jayanti just noticed that. So I'll correct that.
which verse is this?
It must be 5. I can tell you actually. Nani Ben, I was just checking if everybody's awake, and it looks like
I
you
glanced at it and I knew it was wrong.
I didn't want to point out. Sorry.
Okay, I can let me just let you know what it is.
You can change it now.
No. It's 5 to 15. 5 to 15. But I'll change it when I send it. No.
Now if you do the next thing, you talk about just.
Oh yeah, 5 to 15. There you go. She's smarter than I am. Okay. So he was a young boy, but Narad took this as special mercy of the Lord, and he left home. He traveled to many towns and villages and forests. It's described he actually traveled the whole world. And he went through some very dangerous places. But he always had this incredible faith in the Lord. He finally sat under a banyan tree and he meditated on the super soul within the heart. This was what the sages had advised him to do. Then Narad has darshan. He sees the Lord. Verses 16 to 20. As Narad began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down his eyes. And look at this. The Lord immediately appeared on the lotus of his heart. So sometimes the Lord may do that. But if we see what's happened next, the Lord, he quickly disappeared. Quickly he disappeared. Narad could not by any means regain the vision of the Lord. Seeing Narad's attempts, the Lord spoke with gravity and pleasing words just to mitigate his grief. So sometimes the Lord does this, and he does this to us as well. When we first start chanting, especially chanting, there's such a nice taste. We really enjoy it. We're really relishing it. But then after a little while, we find that it's become a little bit dry. It's become a little bit hard. I'm not sure if everybody goes through this, but I know many devotees who have gone through this same phase. I went through it. And you're always trying to regain that original taste that you had at the beginning. So in some ways, that original taste is what we want to get back again. And similarly, the Lord showed himself to Narad, and now he was always looking for that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Lord was very kind to him. The Lord said, "Oh, virtuous one, you have only seen me once. Only once seen me. And that is just to increase your desire for me." So same with us. We've tasted this nectar of the holy name. We've lost it. Now we're trying to get it back again. So we've got this strong desire to get it back again. And that desire has to be there. You'd only know that desire if you don't have the taste. And you want to get that taste back. That's not a bad place to be, want to get that taste back. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed of your material desires. Intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be hampered. Even at the time of creation, as well as in annihilation, your remembrance of me will continue by my mercy. So Krishna is giving him assurance that you will never forget me. And that's my prayer, actually. My dear Lord, no matter what I go through, please don't let me forget you. Please let me not forget you. Narad changed his body. So this is verses 26 to 30. Then Narad began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord repeatedly and traveled all over the earth, ignoring all formalities. He was fully satisfied, humble, and not envious of anyone. At death, Narad was awarded a transcendental body, befitting an associate of the Lord, and at the end he achieved Narayan. It doesn't mean he became Narayan. He achieved the devotion of Narayan, the service of Narayan. At the beginning of Brahma's day, he appeared as one of the sons of Brahma. Narad traveled everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the material world. He's one of the rare souls. He's the transcendental spaceman. Constantly singing the glories of the Lord while vibrating his veena. Narad finally advised Vyasadeva that those who are always full of care and anxieties, there you go, this is that verse, due to desiring contact of the senses with the objects, can cross the ocean of nascence on a suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the Lord. This is him. Narad Muni ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So I wanted to ask, is there anybody with questions from yesterday? Maybe you read the verses from yesterday and have a question. Is there anybody who'd like to ask a question or share anything that you've read yesterday and you'd like to share it with us?
Prabhuji?
Yes.
Yes. Just wanted to know, is there any sort of relationship between Sukdev Goswami and Sud Goswami? Any, or they are just two great sages?
Two great sages. And in one sense, Sutta Goswami is the disciple of Sukadev Goswami. He was sitting in the arena, of when Parikshit Maharaj was being spoken to by Sukadev Goswami. And he is Shrutidhar, so he can, everything he hears, he remembers by heart. So in one sense, he's like a disciple of Sukadev Goswami.
Okay.
I don't know who the formal guru of Sutta is. It might be Vyasadeva, not sure. But at least Sukadev Goswami is definitely his Shiksha guru, yeah. So instructing guru, yeah. Otherwise, no, I don't think there's a family connection between the two. No. The father of Sukadev Goswami, Ramaharshana, he was a disciple of Vyasadeva.
And Navi, I think a lot of after Vyasadeva had divided all the Vedas, and then he was dissatisfied. The Vedas were distributed among so many rishis, and a lot of them were entrusted to Ramaharshan as well, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. He was one of the foremost.
He was one of the foremost one.
Yeah.
Who was handed over a lot of these Vedas and the teachings and everything. And then Ramaharshan was the father of Sutta Goswami.
That's right. That's right. Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions from yesterday at all? And devotee should ask, I mean, should read, should analyze, and even make comments. You're very welcome to do so, because we're not going to cover all the points. So if there's an important, significant point we've missed, then you can fill the gap. That's actually a very, very nice thing to do, because that way we're all on this journey. We're all going together. And it's a really phenomenal journey. So, Madhusudan, anything you'd like to share?
But it's just interesting that when we come to this section and we start to see that some bits of the hints are given in Narad Muni's story about when he was a young boy, and then Lord, he actually was in the association of sages, and then he got the benefit of their association, and having had some Mahaprasad from them, the remnants of their food, his consciousness was totally transformed. Obviously, it wasn't completely freed from all the material activities and all that. So then as a young boy, he traveled around, as once his mother had passed away. And actually that in itself, he saw that as a blessing. And his mother, somehow Krishna would do that sometimes, that, he understands that, this boy's journey needs to start now. And it's a spiritual journey now. So, he traveled actually. And amazing when he describes it, how when he traveled, I mean, this happened in Narad Muni's times, whenever, as a young boy, and he got the birth as a, and we're talking about him as a young boy at a time when he traveled, there were cities and villages and metropolises, and you realize that, this isn't just the first civilization of humans, There has been so many other civilizations in the times, and we get a hint of maybe previous kalpas as well, previous day of Brahma that he spent time, and then he, when he said that, when once he had seen the Supreme Lord in his heart once, and then his hankering had increased, and then he continued that mood, and then he was given the, when he was given the service of Narayan, then in the next day of Brahma, when Brahma woke up after 4,300 million years, whatever, million years.
4.3 trillion years.
Yeah, trillion years. And he woke up again to create the material creation again. So this gives a hint that Brahma creates all these in his day, then he goes to sleep, then he wakes up and he creates again, and then beginning of creation, there were all these rishis were created, and at the same time, Narad Muni appeared as well in the creation, and he is obviously a transcendental spaceman who can go anywhere he wants. He can go to the spiritual world, he can come in the material world. He's just amazing personality, and it just shows that Narad Muni, when he comes to Vyasadeva as well to give the instructions, he is telling Vyasadeva that what you've actually done, the dividing of the Vedas, distributed into different Puranas and all that, you've actually done something that is going to be a bit of a disservice to the humanity, because people in general will stay even more entangled following all these rules, regulations, and follow the system, and they will not actually get a chance to realize who the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in the service and have a chance. So there's quite amazing instruction to Vyasadeva by Narad Muni, to get freed. So even Vyasadeva then goes on to compile. But interesting now is that, Vyasadeva is beginning to ask Narad Muni, how did you happen to be in the position where you are, So it becomes clear, and they start to get a hint that there is Brahma, and then there's creations, there's the day of Brahma and the night of Brahma, and how long it is, and so it'll unfold as we go along. But certainly, Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, as we finish Bhagavad Gita, how this kind of unfold, and it's carried forward into all these pastimes of great devotees like Narad Muni and
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu.
yeah.
Anybody like to ask any questions on today's session? Or any comments on today's session? And Indulekha, actually, you can go through the lessons for the first 3 sessions.
Chapters.
Chapters, yeah, chapters.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Give me a second, please.
No problem, no
To get out of the kitchen first.
Out of the fire into the frying pan, or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Out of the frying pan into
Okay. So you want an overview for the first 3 chapters, right?
the lessons, the 3 things that we can take away from the first 3 chapters.
Oh, I was going to give a whole overview of everything.
No, because we've done the overview, right? I think we just want to do the lessons. So what do we take out of the first chapter, and the second chapter, and the third chapter?
So from the first chapter, so we are going to take, we have to always respect the spiritual master and ask questions in a submissive way, not in a challenging way, in a submissive way. Then we will progress in our spiritual life. And the second chapter is always remember that Lord Sri Krishna is the absolute truth and the ultimate goal of life, right? And the third one is Lord Krishna is the original Godhead. There was unlimited expansion. So these are 3 lessons that we can take home from here.
Thank you.
Always remember.
Yeah. Thank you. What we can do, I will put those lessons, we'll do a cumulative run on the lessons now. So we've got 3, and from the next 3, if you could do the same again, 4, 5, 6, 1 lesson each chapter. In that way, we're not just reading or we're not just doing an overview, but we actually want to transform our lives. That's the whole idea of trying to learn the Bhagavatam. So, no, thank you for that, Mataji.
Excuse me, Prabhuji. I was just thinking, are these split into 18 Puranas? Because this is a Narad Puran we were talking about just now.
No, Narad Puran is different. That's a different Purana altogether.
Is it?
Yeah. It's completely different Purana. And actually that Purana is referred to many a time by Srila Prabhupada because he's got lots and lots of wonderful instructions.
But Bhagavatam is comprised of 18 Puranas, aren't they?
No, Bhagavatam is one of the 18 Puranas.
One of the 18. Okay.
But it's called Amala Puran. It's the topmost Puran. It's not a Purana which is subjected to the laws of this world. All the other Puranas are written in to bring the follower up to a certain mode. But this Bhagavad Purana is written in such a way as to take us out of this world completely. So that's why it's called Amala Purana.
It's Mal Purana, is it?
Amala Purana.
What does that mean then, Amal?
It means out of this world. It's transcendental.
Okay.
Thank you
very much.
Did you not attend the first session we did on the Bhagavatam, where we talked about all the different layers of Vedic knowledge? Were you not?
Yes, I did.
There, we looked at each and every one of the 18 Puranas. We looked at separately. If you remember. If you remember.
And that is comprised in this, isn't it?
No, the Bhagavad Puran stands ahead of all of those. So, for example, all of the other Puranas will have lots of information about creation, destruction, maintenance of this world and the avatars, but they're all independently spoken about in those Puranas. Whereas here, those same things are spoken: creation, destruction, maintenance, avatars, but they're all geared towards how to increase our bhakti for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why this is a very different Purana. I'll send you the notes again of that first. Because if you just go through that, you'll see how this Purana is very different from the other Puranas.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that question, Suresh. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I think Nabi, some ways described that all these other Puranas and the Vedas and are compared to like a tree with leaves and all that, and then that is what Vyasadeva kind of would have divided all the Vedas. But then Bhagavatam is like the ripened fruit
Yeah.
of all the Puranas, so it's spotless and yeah, so that's how it's described, isn't it? So
Yeah.
you may be able
That's
to
a good point. Yeah, it's a
elaborate.
yeah, very good, very good. Next point. Very good point, actually. It's the ripened fruit of Vedic, the Vedanta Sutras and the Vedas. Very good point. Naniben?
Yes?
Oh, sorry, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm
Okay.
okay.
Anybody else? Anybody else would like to ask anything, contribute anything? Oh, Vaishaki, how are you doing? Are you with us?
Yes, Prabhu, I'm with you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
are you finding this session useful?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
But sorry for last 2 days I was not able to join because
no.
kids need some help. That's why.
No problem at all. No problem.
Yeah.
I was thinking, are you able to read the chapters at all before coming or even after?
No, I'll get the weekend to read now. So
Okay.
in the weekend, I'll read whatever you have, those notes you have sent me. And plus, I also have Bhagavatam. So I will start reading. So we have started from last weekend, but in weekdays, it's not possible for us to read through.
No, that's
so
fine.
We have started with the introduction. And now again, today, tomorrow, and on Sunday, we will read further Canto 1.
Try to read those texts of the first 6 chapters. It'll take you probably an hour in total.
Okay.
Because that's what
Just
we've
the
covered.
translation.
Yeah, just the translations.
Okay. Yeah.
It'll take about an hour. Because then you will be up to speed with where we are for Monday.
Oh, okay. Sure. Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you,
But some of these stories which you were sharing right now about Naradji and all this, so I know all about this because
Yes.
we go for Bhakti Vriksha classes here. So
Yes.
I have heard all these stories, Bhagavatam stories.
That's
I
right.
was a bit aware, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair, fine.
Yeah.
With the Bhagavatam, the stories are actually incidental.
Yeah.
More, it is the instructions that are given in the Bhagavatam, which is more important. But the stories actually help us because sometimes we can remember the stories a lot better than the instructions.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that. So I think going forward, if devotees don't mind, I will call upon various devotees, just give some ideas. It's all optional. You don't have to speak, don't have to say anything, but I just like to have a little bit more interaction. So if that's possible, I'd like to do that. Sunita, have you got any questions?
Oh, Hare Krishna. Hello. I just I like been said before. I've missed a couple of days and everything, so I'm just playing catch up at the moment. So it's really very interesting seeing everything.
I wanted to mention to you on Sunday is Ekadashi, because I think you wanted to know a little bit more about the grains and things like that, didn't you?
Sure. Yes.
So Ekadashi is a day where we avoid eating rice, dal, chapati, bread. More we will, if one eats, then one would eat non-grain foods like fruits, milk, potatoes, things like that. Nuts. So it's a very good day to fast, especially in this month of Purushottam. So I don't know if you're not used to fasting. you know, you
it's usually fruits and like you mentioned, potato and everything, and but the grains are included as well with, you know, with it being vegetarian. So grains and rice, things like that are included.
Yeah,
So
we avoid the
you know
rice.
what was behind it, or what was behind the reasoning,
Right. Very,
why you avoid the grains.
very briefly, on this day of Ekadashi, it's considered that grains contains all the sins.
Okay.
That's why we avoid grains on the 11th day of the waning and the waxing moons. So the idea actually is to increase our bhakti, increase our chanting of the holy names, reading of the holy names, like that. So that's the main reason of Ekadashi. But we try to do this fast because it's our little bit of austerity that we do for the pleasure of the Lord. And it's also to give the stomach a rest, because every day we eat grains, you know, it takes its toll on the belly. So giving it a little rest, even your stomach will be saying to you, way to go.
I see. Yeah, and also in something, maybe not this particular incident, but you've mentioned also avoiding. I think it was more for the donations for the homeless, cookings to avoid garlic, garlic and onions.
Garlic and onions.
Is there a reason behind that as well?
Yes, generally those foods don't help us come closer to God. Those onion and garlic are foods regarded to be in a mode of passion. They make you more passionate. So we've already got enough passion in us. We don't need any more. So, they usually take the mind away from spirituality. So that's why we avoid onion and garlic. Our daily cooking would not include onion and garlic, let alone cooking for others.
Okay. Yeah. So ginger and everything's okay. It's just the onions and garlic.
Ginger is fine, and you can to replace onion and garlic, you can use hing. That's got quite strong flavor, which takes the place of onion and garlic.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. I remember my mum was telling me about that as well. When she had to cook, she had to remember it's quite strict.
Yeah.
So I just remember when she was telling me when she was attending the temple.
One day we'll do a session on sattvic food.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And all that. Thank you very much. Huh?
Thank you.
So if there's nothing else, we'd like to put a stop to this session. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And we can move on to the Nishinga Kavach.